It's fascinating because like even 3 years ago, LLMs are just coming out. Then 18 months later, we're at vision action models where I can give a mission to a robot and say, go to the break room, grab a bottle of water and deliver it to Jeff. Now think about for us, it's like, oh yeah, I'll go to the break room, grab a water and give it to Jeff. But what is a break room? Like, what's a refrigerator? Where's the water live? What's a water look like? Who was Jeff? What's a Jeff? Like, it's all those things now can be translated in real time. But the core of it has to be the perception to define what those objects are, and then upper layers of the stack to really complete a mission.
Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here with you all today, and I'm talking with Mike Nielsen, who is Chief Marketing Officer of RealSense.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So before we get into RealSense, which is such a cool company, why don't you tell the audience a bit about your career path, how you got here, and choose your own adventure on that story.
I try to explain this in past interviews and also like at interviews for a job. The journey is weird, and I'm going to just own that right now. And I'll also start by saying at RealSense, we've got a ton of like super technical people, and I'm pretty technical, and I'm always playing catch up. So we're a group of nerds, and it's awesome. I started out as an engineer. I was double E major. Went and did board design, then built networks, and ultimately went in and did like a bunch of customer-facing work. So a ton of fun going out and building a lot of stuff in the, like, not early internet, but at the big scale phases of the internet back in the early 2000s. At some point, I don't know exactly how this happened, but I kind of tripped over my shoelaces, ended up in marketing. And they needed somebody that understood the tech and that also understood how to talk to customers. And I hadn't been in that world, in those shoes before. Kind of led me down through a few things. We tried to figure out how to do solutions at some big companies, some startups, what it means from a customer's perspective to take and roll out new technologies, and ultimately landed me on security, video, and a bunch of other activities. And it kind of then comes together here. I spent a couple of years at Intel running the incubator. We had a startup incubator that we brought in, over 1,300 applications. So we were operating as an internal VC, but we did a lot of external work as well. That was the time of my life, because we were getting stuff, just all these amazing ideas all the time. Some of them were terrible, and my son loves those stories, but some were just amazing. Ultimately, Intel went through what it went through. We also had RealSense in the portfolio, and we decided to spin the company out. So when that happened, I was running the biometrics business, and then we spun the company out, and now I'm CMO.
That's awesome. I want to talk a little about, because again, most of our audience is in the marketing world. Yeah. The power of being a technologist and a marketer. Maybe you can just talk about that, like the superpower that it gives you. Like, how do you mentor others on understanding the technical if they're not engineers?
I do find that most folks that are in marketing, more classical marketing, I learn a ton from, because the way that they tell stories is really interesting. For me, the strength that it gives me is an ability to understand down at a relatively detailed level what the customer is actually doing with our stuff. Yeah. And I'm deep into tech, right? So it's down to like explaining convolutional neural networks and then drawing that back up as to why a perception system is important for a robot, or why doing anti-biasing training for your algorithms is really critical for biometrics. So having that, being able to thread it down, not quite down to code level, but close enough, and then have the conversations to tell the stories to the customers is really valuable, especially in the audiences that we have that are super technical in the first place.
Yeah, I think it's like really, really important when you think about how do you empathize with a customer. Like, marketing is all about audiences. It's on being the voice of a customer market. Like, your background and of technical to be able to do that. But even if you're not, like, I think it's like you can get there. You can learn. And I think, I don't know how you feel about the people that work for you that aren't technical. How do you get them there?
It's it's amazing. One of my closest friends and also best bosses historically was, I think he was a journalism major actually at Harvard. Didn't study tech, but learned networking and security, and was able to go down to the protocol level. So I learned a ton from him. Found out later on he came from the business world, wasn't really in the tech world. So I don't ascribe a hard like binary if you know tech because you have the degree in tech. I don't think it's really fair, especially now. And also the flip is true, where just because you know the tech doesn't mean you can do the marketing.
Yeah.
Like I'd be a terrible consumer marketer.
Yeah.
Awful. I'm not the right demographic for most of the stuff. I don't really resonate with it. But when it comes down to nerding out and having those conversations with people that are way smarter than me building this stuff, it makes it's a pretty natural flow.
Yeah.
But yeah, we work with a bunch of people historically, and I've had large teams that were not technologists. But once they start to understand what the customer's really dealing with, then you see the light bulbs go off.
And that's the beauty of marketing. It's like there's the practitioner level of storytelling, of engagement that not everyone can do, but like adding that, it's like that's why being a marketer is amazing. So let's talk a little bit about RealSense. Amazing company, amazing company. Why don't you tell the audience what it does, and again, bring it to life.
So RealSense is kind of at the foundation of vision systems, and we build the visual cortex for perception, for robotics, and biometrics.
All right, unpack that a second.
Yes, it's a lot to stick into one sentence. We've been working on the sentence for a while. So we really have two core lines of business. They're the depth business, where we can look and I can tell you exactly how far away the camera is. And then I can tell you volumetrically how large the lens is. And if I want to take the entire shape, I can tell you what that shape is, and then tell you the entire area of that shape. So we do, to see in stereo, to see binocular vision like humans do, we can tell how far away objects are, relative distances between objects, and things like that. We take that down to the next level where we actually measure it. So depending on how far apart our lenses are and how far a projector can reach, I can tell you up to like 25, 30 feet away, down to almost the millimeter level as to how accurate something is far away. So that's kind of the core of what we do. As you pull that up a bit, you've got to make decisions now on how you use that data. So we got all kinds of crazy customer stories. In fact, I was just reading about 10 more that came in overnight. We work with one company, I can't say their name yet, but they do analysis in grain silos. Grain silos are super dangerous places to be. You don't want to send humans in because they can get hurt. There's gases, there's it's bad. So they put cameras in there, and they're measuring the amount of grain in the silo. We do robots, and robots have to, by definition, navigate around areas. And we've seen a major transition from static paths, where they were called AGVs, autonomous guided vehicles, where they would be guided along a path or somebody's remote controlling it, now to where they operate like they come in a room like this, don't slam into the table, don't hit the post, but they don't know it's a post. They just know it's a static object. But they can tell that you have legs and you'll probably move around a little bit, and therefore you're not to be mapped. You're considered an ephemeral object. So translating the visual data into something that can be acted upon is kind of the core of what we do. And that translates to biometrics as well, but kind of a different story.
So basically, you're providing data to robotics, other maybe models as well, so it can be incorporated on these very key things, on like the what is it, and then that can be applied to different models on logic there. Yeah.
It's fascinating because like even 3 years ago, LLMs are just coming out. Now, 50 years before that, we had the first AI-based robots. And then it took 50 years to get to the point where they're mainstream. So you go into any production environment, you'll see forklifts that are automated, you'll see these AMRs, that autonomous mobile robots. They'll go underneath the pallet and jack up and move around. And they've got to do it in such a way that is super safe because there are humans around. And when these things are carrying like 2 tons of equipment, you can't run into a soft, squishy human because they will get injured. So we've gotten away from this, I'm remote controlling or all just following a certain path, to where we've gone from, the fascinating thing for me is in 3 years, it took 50 years to get to the point of having decent natural language and large language model processing, right? And then 2 years later, you saw the introduction of vision language models, where it's like find the apple. Then 18 months later, we're at vision action models, where I can give a mission to a robot and say, go to the break room, grab a bottle of water, and deliver it to Jeff. Now think about for us, it's like, oh yeah, I'll go to the break room, grab a water, and give it to Jeff. But what is a break room? Like, what's a refrigerator? Where's the water live? What's a water look like? Who is Jeff? What's a Jeff? Like, it's all those things now can be translated in real time. But the core of it has to be the perception to define what those objects are, and then upper layers of the stack to really complete a mission.
I find it interesting when you think about the ecosystem of AI and the importance of, obviously there's the models, which are essential, it's foundational, but like it's the data that companies like yours are bringing that like really makes so much more possible. To that end, like maybe you can walk through. You talk about the grain silos. What are some other like cool projects that you're allowed to talk about that
There's so many. Yeah. There's so many. So one of my favorite ones is a company out of Spain. They're called iSynth. They focus on translating the physical environment into something that a blind person can see. So they have a camera, a very small one of our cameras mounted just above a set of glasses. It then goes to a compute backpack, has a GPU in it. That compute then translate what it sees into a language that is sound-based. It's not really telling you like, watch out for the chair. It's more translating it into sound and using concepts of synesthesia to allow you to now walk up as a blind person and shake someone's hand without having to be guided to their hand. It's fascinating technology. And then you go all the way over to the robot side of the house. So if you'd asked me 2 years ago about humanoid robots, I would have said you were kind of full of it because I wasn't seeing it. Having been to China fairly recently, eyes are open. Like the use cases are real, where it's too dangerous for a person. Not to take away a job, but like that's just, there's a chemical spill. I want to send in a robot that has to operate in a human environment to do a cleanup, right? So things that are dangerous, things that are heavy, things that you just don't want people doing, but they have to operate in human space. And then we've got just a million other cool use cases where they're popping up daily. We had one that came in. I hadn't spoken to this customer before, but they wrote up a case study about us and were telling us that they were out. They replaced the manual process of taking a person in a truck and scanning for all the manholes in the city. And there are thousands of manholes in the city, right? There are probably tens of thousands in San Francisco. And they have to then go back to their clipboard and note the location, the GPS coordinates, and then do an actual measurement and give visual inspection of the manhole cover. They just totally automated that. There's still a person driving the truck, but they can just literally drive up and down the streets and not get out of the truck and block traffic and measure the thing and take pictures. It's all fully automated because you've got not just the visual data, but you can do damage analysis plus volumetric at the same time and give you a really clear, literal picture of what is happening in the real world.
And your buyers are the robot manufacturers? Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Typically, yeah. Most of the folks, we tend to work very closely back to the nerdiness of what we do with the developers. Yeah. The developers they drive us. We've got an open source SDK. We've got a ton of different form factors for both the depth cameras and the biometric cameras. And it tends to be a groundswell where they're building a thing that they know they want to use vision with. And what's cool right now is that robotics is like, everybody knows robots have to have eyes and a brain. But now we're starting to see applications where eyes and a brain are getting useful, like the manhole cover thing, or like helping blind people see, or measuring athletes for the size of their foot for precision shoe development. Like you name it, those type of applications are on the way. Some surgical stuff that we can't really talk about yet, but we're starting to see where they're replacing, decades old of manual measurements that are rife with problems. And then even stuff that's actually hits pretty hard for me. One of our customers is developing my father passed away from Alzheimer's, induced largely by sleep apnea over the course of years, and he never got sleep tested. So my father-in-law now is having sleep apnea. We're like, oh my God, he has dementia. What do we do? He went in to get tested, and wires, I've got a picture of him covered. Imagine being a person with dementia waking up in the middle of the night and covered in wires. It's terrifying. They developed some tech with our cameras parked overhead that looks down that determines what their sleep pattern looks like. And it can actually measure volumetrically with their chest, even underneath a blanket, how well they're breathing. So that's the kind of stuff we're seeing now that is just radically different than it was even like 5 years ago.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's like the key component of AI is data. And
yes.
And you are providing such a critical point.
Yep.
Okay, I want to walk a little bit back in your career a little bit. Again, I'm sure there's a lot of the audience is like, I want Mike's job, because it's pretty cool.
It's a dream job. I love my job.
Maybe you can walk back, like you were talking about being at the accelerator at Intel. Like, what was a career-changing moment for you?
Oh my God, so it's funny. So for the audience, Jeff and I have a shared history at different points in time. I was running marketing for Cisco before you had joined. I think it was via OpenDNS, right?
That's right. Okay.
So I had left, and at that point, I'm going to say it out loud, I am never going to go into another marketing role again in my life, especially in a big company. Because it was just the slog that a lot of folks will probably understand when they're dealing with, if their role is product marketing, you've got comms, you've got field marketing, you've got different groups, and having to navigate that matrix is really tough. And there were also some special challenges in our previous organization that drove me a little crazy. Great company, that was rough. Decided I wasn't going to do it again, right? I'm like, that's okay, I'm going to go do back to innovation. So I got to go back and work, and at Cisco, we had an innovation team. And we were developing what we call the Solution Factory. So we got to build all these really cool, like video-based solutions that were riding on the collaboration software and some security stuff. We built like 12 business units and did all this amazing stuff. And then, fast forward, Cisco pares back a little bit. Those assets may be not super valuable for the company. So we ended up tearing bits of it down, selling some to private equity, some to some established tech companies, and that got me into a mode of, I want to now go back into innovation, but from a VC and PE perspective. So I went to a small boutique PE firm out of Chicago, worked with them for a bit to find new deals, new assets, and to do restructures and recapitalizations and things like that. And then ultimately, that led me to Intel with the incubator. And Mark Yahiro, who lives here in the city, recruited me into Intel, which I never thought I'd go to a company like Intel. And he'll be the first one to say, he said it to me on my first day. He's like, I've been here at the time 9 years. I didn't think I'd last 4. And I lasted 5. But that's when we finally were able to, we wanted to lift this asset out for a long time. And I'd done lift outs before and kind of knew how you do the restructure on the way out the door. So got a chance to help out our new CEO in building the new company, and now joining in. So
it's interesting hearing your story. A lot of people, when they leave one place, they over-rotate. Like you're saying, that feeling, I'm not going to work in this small company, go to the big, and stuff like that. But you find, and again, finding this, you find, the right place, and there's a lot of different components. And I think your story speaks to that, right? Because again, imagine if you kept that feeling, you wouldn't be where you are right now.
Well, where you guys are at as a company, I think is going to it would fundamentally change my opinion if I went back in time. Yeah. Because the way that we do marketing right now, and we were just chatting about this before, I can't justify getting additional resources I would normally have the cushion for, because I can do it so quickly with AI.
Yeah.
I imagine now in a big company, a lot of the inefficiencies are just driven by the fact that you can't automate a workflow, and that workflow goes across multiple domains. Yeah. I imagine being a CMO at a big company right now is probably super exciting, but it's also kind of perilous, because the way that we can do things now with the marketing tooling is just super disruptive to how we did it organizationally before. So I'd love to talk to we're talking later today, but I'd love to talk to some more folks and see what they're seeing, because I think there's a lot of learning, especially in small companies, because we do everything, right? Like
exactly.
You do everything, like literally every day. I'm writing a customer story, or we're doing a press release, or we're doing a podcast, or whatever, and then all the execution downstream. All that execution now can be done with some smart people and a good narrative. Right?
Yeah, a big part of marketing, I think, is also change management. Right? It's like you can have ideas, you can have technology, but you've got to bring a company along. And I think you're doing that. I can just hearing about your launches and things like that's a big part of what you do.
Yep.
Maybe you can tell the audience what you're most excited about in your world. Like again, everyone can relate to robotics. Everyone can see it. Like they see the Waymos out there. Like what are you most excited about in the frontier of your space?
There's 2 things that we're working on that get me super motivated every time I see them. One is that I'll go to biometrics for a second. We all use our phone to talk to our face so we can get into our phone. I think the world now has just gotten past the idea of having to type in a password or swipe a badge. Mm-hmm. The problem is the enterprises haven't also made the shift, but we're starting to see evidence that whether it be soccer stadiums or concert venues or the bank or whatever else, where they want to use a biometric marker to get somebody in. So we're starting to see that shift. So I think we're going to get away from, we're going to go contactless here pretty quick. I think we'll finally get in front of this and get this out into the world. And that's there's a whole lot of dirt underneath the biometric stuff that we can talk about as well, because it took a long time to get us here, where it can be ethically used, it can be privacy preserving, and it can be de-biased. But the other side of it, which gets me super excited, like today, I was down the road doing some other work in the city, and I must have seen 50 Waymos. Now, 2 years ago, the Waymo would pull up really slowly, it would take a bit, and it would finally pull away very gently. Now, just the cars are moving at the speed of a confident and semi-aggressive driver. And I don't know if people understand how hard it is to go from, think of it in the context of like a motor control on a robot that has to pick something off a shelf. You see videos of this now, they go kind of slow in, they'll rotate, they'll clip, they'll come out really slowly, rotate, and then press down. Imagine just doing that. And now imagine doing that 10 times faster with a robot. It's that level of acceleration. The Waymos are doing it, the humanoids are doing it. The acceleration into more fluid, natural human movement and natural environmental movement is finally starting to stick.
All right, give the most bombastic, hyperbolic, even if you want, prediction, AI prediction, in the world you're in or just in general.
I think we are going to go seamless very quick, where it's, and again, I'll split it into two, who I am and what I'm doing. So who I am, I want to be able to walk into a store, grab what I want to get, walk away. And it's going to know who I am. You're going to use cameras to figure out what I'm carrying. I'm not going to scan anything. There'll be a volumetric tag that says that's the medium-sized soda bottle. And it's going to know exactly which manufacturer it was, and from the accommodation of the visual data, plus the size data, plus the location that was picked from. So it's that combined with a massive amount of automation that's going to, I think, just make our lives just easier in physical space. The whole idea of physical AI is to be able to use AI in the physical world to make human beings' lives ultimately easier. It's not, again, not about job destruction. It's about just making stuff happen faster. Like we're talking about with marketing, I can now do 50x the speed I used to be able to do because all the friction's gone. Now think of that friction disappearing in the physical space too. It's nuts, the pace of change that we're seeing.
Do you think that though, like there's the technology in a vacuum isolation that can do that, and it will, like you're saying. What's it going to take for it to become ubiquitous? And that goes back to the ultimate, the lever, the change management around that.
I think it's difficult to say. It depends on the environment. So like somebody asked me recently, is it inevitable that we'll use biometrics at airports? I'm like, yeah, totally inevitable. There will be the outlier of the person that's like, I don't want Big Brother knowing what my face is. That's because they don't understand it yet.
Aren't we already using biometrics at airports?
But I mean, like all the way through, from the point of like, you walk in, you've been identified, the airline's been pre-notified that you before check-in, that you're going to check in, seamless, like all the way walking through. You still have to go through security, hopefully, and it works. So there will be holdouts there, and I think the same things can be said for the physical AI movement, where there will be holdouts. People don't want to use robots, they don't want to use machines, but they'll be impacted by them in their regular life. Like if you order something from Amazon today, it's been touched by 10 machines before it got to you, right? So
that's pretty cool.
It's very cool stuff.
All right, last question. Advice now for the audience, for marketers out there. What is, choose your own adventure, how you give that advice, but to prepare them for all that's coming from an AI perspective.
Ooh. Use the tools. Start getting very familiar. Try to think of yourself as a marketer, as a mini CMO for your entire product line, right? So don't think of yourself as just the product marketer and all you're responsible is just for messaging or for roadmap, or just the person that does campaigns and events. Like you've got to think of this in the context of how your story is going to be executed throughout the entire continuum. And a lot of the vehicles we've used historically are the same. Email still works, webcasts still work, podcasts still work. Social is different, but different vehicles in social work better in different ways. But start to think of yourself from like story to metrics and all the way through, because I think there's going to be a shift coming. I don't want to make it scary, but I think there's going to be a shift coming for a lot, especially in big companies, where maybe a person can be the CMO for that product line and then kind of automate all the tooling behind it. And still, like, you still got to follow rules. The company is going to have rules about what it can say and how it can say it, who it can say it to. But you can work that stuff all in.
Really great advice. Thank you so much.
You.
That was a lot of fun.
Good to see you.
Thanks, everyone.